Hey, 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 welcome back to The Growth Show. I am your host, Whitney Bateson, and today we are talking about how to have better discovery calls and stop making these mistakes that I'm going to talk about. Because I actually have been on some discovery calls as a customer lately, and it's been pretty eye-opening, actually. There's some things that I definitely feel very passionately about that providers can be doing better to have really great discovery calls, and some things that I've learned over the years when I've held discovery calls that have really ensured that they go well, that the customer is feeling supported, and then, of course, they end in people saying yes to working with me. So we're going to talk about that today. Let's first, though, talk about what is a discovery call. So discovery calls are not a time to be offering free advice. They are not like a free advice, get some of my services for free, right? They are intended to be a sales call. And typically what we'll do is we will have our website laid out, and then we will have a button to allow people to book a call on our calendar so that they can talk with us to learn more about our services, ask any questions that they have, make sure that our services are the right fit for them. They get to meet us because that's a big thing too. You know, people want to make sure that it's a good fit. You want to make sure it's a good fit. So it's a time to enter into the sales process with a low commitment call just to kind of test the waters, kick the tires, learn what's going on. So it's very much focused on sales. It's not educational. It's not free advice. The client is not looking for that. If someone is setting up a discovery call, 9 times out of 10 these days, they know that it is a sales call. They want to learn about your services. They don't want to just like talk and then not have any action coming from it. They're looking to take action. The people that book discovery calls with you are at that point in the sales process where they are weighing you against other people, or maybe they're deciding between a few of your different offerings, if you do have a few offerings on your website. So they are in that final decision phase, and it's your opportunity and responsibility on this call to help them with their decision. So that's really the point. They need help deciding if you can help them achieve the goals that they want, know that your services are the right fit, and make them feel really confident that they're going to be making a good decision by working with you. Now, here are some of the mistakes that I have made myself in the past, that I've seen others make, that we are going to try and avoid. First, not asking good questions on the intake form. Because if you don't ask some questions to prepare for the call, you're not going to be prepared for the call. And we'll talk about how to prepare for the call in a moment. Another mistake is not letting your customer speak, or not asking questions and allowing them to explain themselves more on the phone. Now, we don't want to invite the customer to spend 15 minutes at the top of the call just going over all of their ailments. And, we need to gently and kindly direct them, because again, this is a time to take action, this call. So we want to focus on what are the pieces of information that we need to know to help them take that action. But if it's just a long, diatribe, then that's too much. But what I've been on calls where it's just straight into, okay, these are the services, this is my process and all of that. And I wasn't asked any questions. I wasn't allowed to talk about, I wasn't invited to talk about myself or what I was looking for or where I was or anything like that. And therefore I wasn't open to hearing the solution because I wasn't sure that I had even been heard in the first place. So a mistake is really not hearing your customers first. First, we need them to feel like they've been heard. And I've talked about this, about writing copy for your site and communicating with your customers. They first need to feel that you understand them and that you get where they're coming from and you get what problems they have. And then they're going to be open to hearing your solution. But if you don't first allow them to feel like you get them and that they've been heard, then they are not going to feel confident that you even understand their problem fully. And they're not going to be as open, whether they consciously or subconsciously feel it, they're not going to be as open to the solution that you're presenting. I would say another mistake is not preparing a script or outline in advance and just kind of showing up to the call and winging it. So we don't want that. We do want to come prepared. Another mistake is not sticking to the time allotted. Now, this is something that I have struggled with, but this was back when I was doing custom websites and I was using our discovery calls as really a scoping call as well. So sometimes they did go a little bit over, but they were because we were talking about things that were directly related to the project. But I have been on discovery calls where they just went over and I really didn't feel that the time was time well spent. I felt that the provider that I was potentially hiring just ended up just kind of talking a lot. It was a lot of chit chat, a lot of side anecdotes and things that didn't really support the the task and problem at hand. So I think it is important to show that you can be respectful of time slots and the time allotted. I think as you're getting to the end of your call, if you do feel you need to go over, you can do a time check and you can ask people, hey, I know we're going over by a few. Do you have a few more moments for us to stay on? Because again, you want to be showing that you're a professional, that you are organized, that you know how to run your business and run things efficiently and run them within the expectations so that you've laid out. If the call is a 20-minute call, then you should, hey, if you're just getting started, you're going to be learning and you may think that you can cover a lot more ground in 20 minutes than you actually can. And then you're going to adjust your script as time goes on and all of that. But generally, the customer that's signing up for the call is expecting that you know how to manage time for a 20-minute call to be started and ended in 20 minutes. But if you feel that it's going to take you longer, then you should make that call for a longer amount of time so that person can plan their day effectively when they set up that call. And then finally, another mistake is not talking about next steps and what to expect and actually asking for that sale and talking about, okay, what's it going to take to move forward, that kind of thing. So I was on a call where it was just, we spent a lot of time talking, but then it kind of petered out a little bit and there was no discussion about next steps and what to expect. And I really feel that's important and that's a lost opportunity a little bit. It's fine if the customer starts asking those questions, but then you should just take that as a note. If the customer's asking those questions and you haven't prepared to kind of talk about them, that your next call and your outline for future calls should really include that as well. So I've alluded to the fact that I've had an experience of being on the other side, on the receiving end of some discovery calls. And so I just want to use those as an example before I kind of go into like what you should do to have a really impactful discovery call. So I'm getting married. By the time you hear this, I will be married. And so I was with my fiance looking at service providers for some different things. And so we found both of these service providers online. We actually found them on Google. I was searching Google. So another step point in the column for Google and SEO for getting your business found. So they both had optimized for the search terms I had typed in. So they showed up on the first page of the results near the top. So I clicked on them. Both had discovery call options on their websites, and both were for services with a higher price tag, a premium price tag, I would say. They weren't small, low ticket things. And so for one of them, they asked questions on her intake form. So I was able to give some background on her intake form and make sure that she knew kind of what we were looking for and some of our questions and all of that. And she also asked us questions on the call. Her website was also really clear and gave a lot of information. So we were informed coming to the call, and we did kind of our due diligence on her site to make sure that she had services. She even had prices on there and packages. So we had an idea going in what the price range would be and what kinds of things she was offering. And then when we got in the call, she was actually prepared with a few options for us because on her website, we kind of wanted something like in the middle of what she was offering. And so she already actually had some options available and she was able to talk through what the next steps were and all of that. And we got an email with her, a follow-up email with details, and then we moved forward with hiring her. So that was a really great experience and just a testament to how that sales process of having someone find your site in Google and then book a discovery call and then become a client, that can definitely work when you have the proper things in place. So you have your website optimized well for Google. And this is something like we cover in our website course, the Wellness Pro website system. So you have your site well optimized for Google. You have some blog posts that are answering questions. So depending on what search terms your customer is using to search in Google, your site is coming up. And then your website has the details about your programs and your packages right there so that your customer is already feeling informed about, okay, she or he can help me. These are some of the prices. So I'm already qualifying myself as a potential customer because I'm seeing the prices. I'm still wanting to book a discovery call after seeing the prices, after seeing what you offer, and feeling really good about it. And it's also answering some of the questions. So there's less that we have to talk about on the discovery call so the call can be more focused and more productive. And then having the discovery call option on the website. Now, if there were some other people that we were looking at and they had like contact forms or we just had to email them, and some of them we did, but then you have to go back and forth over email. And I always just love the ability to get on the phone with someone quickly and say, okay, this is the option. Let's move forward. So she had that discovery call on there, and then she ran a really good discovery call and made us feel confident. So we were already we weren't completely 100%, but we were feeling pretty good once we got on that call, and then that call sealed the deal for us. So I think that's the ideal scenario that we really want. So we want our website to be setting people up and teeing them up to be, customers that are really interested. And not all of them are going to be. Some people get on a call and they're not ready, and that's okay. But we definitely want, and then when they get on the call with us, we run a really great call, and then they move forward to become a customer. Now, on the flip side, I mentioned that I also had an experience of a not so great discovery call. So the other service provider, it was for a different service, but we were also searching online for this service provider or, someone to offer the services that we were looking for. And at first, the intake form, it didn't ask any questions there was no free form spot for me to give any more detail or context about our situation. It did ask some questions, but they were very binary, yes, no. Do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? And at first I was impressed. I was like, wow, they've got a great system here. She doesn't even want to know anything else. She's just going to feel, she's going to have the solution. I then felt if she didn't need any further information from us, then she was going to have it all figured out, right? That was what I thought. Then we got on the call, and I think she felt she was doing the right thing because she just started talking about her services and how things go and all of that. But what happened throughout the call was that a lot of the things that she was highlighting as potential benefits of her service or things that would be solving problems for us were not problems we had. They weren't things that were important to us. So she may have felt like, okay, I am going to speak to you about the benefits of my service, and I think it's really good to be highlighting those benefits for our customers, but we need to be highlighting the benefits that align with the priorities and goals and problems of our customers. Because as I was saying at the beginning, if we don't feel like we are heard first as the customer, then we are not going to feel that you understand us. And so the solutions that you present to us, if they don't align with what we need, we're really not going to be feeling so good about moving forward. And that's unfortunately what happened on this call, was just there were a lot of things that were talked about that really didn't apply to us. And we didn't really have the opportunity to explain our situation and talk about, because again, the form didn't ask any of those specifics, and then we didn't get that opportunity to give our specifics. And so we were kind of having to play defense almost, so that when something was brought up as a potential benefit of the service, we were like, well, we don't really need that. And we didn't really feel like our needs and our situation was being heard so much. And it was a long call. There was kind of a fair bit of chit-chatting and all of that. And I think building rapport is good, but in small doses. And maybe this is also just a personal preference. I know it's a personal preference of mine of being respectful of time, but I think it's a good default to be respectful of people's time. And that was something that I didn't feel was part of this experience. And then there also wasn't really a next steps or sales process. Like, what is the next step of moving together if we did want to move together? That we almost ran out of time to talk about that. So we didn't move forward with that provider. Now, was the discovery call the deciding factor? I don't know. But I think had we felt that the solution was going to be a solution for our situation and that we would have been heard, then I think we would have considered it. But because from that discovery call, we didn't feel like we would be heard, we didn't feel like the rest of the process that we would be heard and that our time would be respected. And this is something that I've talked about in the past too, maybe not on this podcast, but if you've attended other things of mine, that your sales process is foreshadowing what your customer delivery process is, what it's like for your customers to work with you and be served by you. So if your sales process is not, if it's completely disjointed, but you've worked so hard on making your customer process really good, like, maybe you're using something like Practice Better or Healthy, and you have a customer portal and you have tracking and handouts and things are automated and it's really, really good. That's great. But if you have neglected your sales process and there's gaps, like I've just talked about with the discovery call, or there's a lack of automation, or things are not as professional, then you're going to have less people getting to actually see how great you can deliver because they're not feeling that you're going to carry that. You're not going to do a good job in the delivery, just to put it bluntly. So we really want to it begins with that discovery call, even with people coming to your website and people feeling like you've got it together, you are the expert, you have a system, a process to give them what they want and solve their problems. Because people are holding on to their money. The economy is a little uncertain right now, and people are they need to hire you, they need your services, but they are being discerning. And we really want to make sure people feel confident and comfortable hiring us for things. And so we need to spend that time to really ensure our processes are ticked and tied. So let's walk through just briefly what you should be doing to avoid these mistakes and ensure you have some really great discovery calls. So first off, I've alluded to this, your intake form. Now, I'm going to go through I've had longer intake forms, I've had shorter intake forms. It's going to vary very much on your service and your process and what information you need to know. But I would say that your intake form should answer the questions that you need to have in order to have a productive discovery call. And really, at its core, we need to understand what people are dealing with and what their problems are and what their ultimate goals are. Because then we can tie our solution, of course, making sure that our solution is actually a good fit for solving those problems and achieving those goals. But let's assume that it is. We can then modify how we speak about our product to say, hey, this is going to help you avoid this problem because it does X, Y, Z. And then you're going to finally be able to get your solution because it does X, Y, Z. So you can then use the language that your customers put into their intake form of their struggles and their goals, and then use that to describe how your program is a good fit for them. And that's going to resonate with them a lot more. And it's coming from a place of you have gone through and looked at what they said, heard what they said, and picked out the specific things about what you offer that actually do address their problems and solve their goals. And I think that's really special, and that's a really great thing for you to be doing as a provider on a discovery call. Because people don't understand your product like you do. I know my product inside and out, so I can tell you very quickly, it's going to help you solve this. It's going to help you avoid this. But people may not know that from coming and reading about your product and whatnot. So you're helping them understand your product more in the context of what it is that they're going through. So your intake form, you can ask them to tell you a little bit about yourself. When I was doing custom websites and having discovery calls, I was asking them a little bit more about their business and what kind of business they were in. And then the questions I had or have now, if someone is setting up a discovery call for our program, granted, this is only if people are having questions about our website program, and I don't do as many of these calls anymore, but generally I'm just asking, what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now when it comes to having a website? So you could easily modify that question to be, what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now when it comes to whatever it is their problem is, or the thing that you work with people on. What's the biggest challenge? And then what are you hoping to achieve with a blank? So for me, it was, what are you hoping to achieve with a new website? But what are you hoping to achieve with, solving this issue? Or what are some of the goals? Another question I used to use in the past is, if I had a magic wand and could wave it and grant you 2 to 3 wishes, what would those be for solving this? Or how would you like to feel? Whatever you want to get at, what is that ultimate goal? What are their goals, and what are they looking for? And whenever possible, trying to tie it back to the problem that you're solving and what you work on, just so that, they probably won't give you like, well, my goal is to go to Disney World. They'll probably relate it to this, but just in case, having some of those words and those questions so that people really keep it focused. And then having a question that's open-ended, like, what questions do you have for me about the Wellness Pro website system that you'd like me to help answer? So you can certainly have that open-ended as well, but that's like the bare minimum of questions you could have. But then you could have other ones as well that are just going to help you to really understand what solution is going to be the right fit for them. And then I would say definitely prepare a script, little chit chat, but then open to ask them briefly to tell a bit more about where they're struggling, what they're looking for. But I would also say, I got your form. Thank you so much for the detail that you provided there. So I have all of that here, but I just wanted to first see if there's anything else you wanted to share with me and let me know before I shared with you some of the ways that I can help. And that way it gives people a little bit of a container, like, hey, I already read your form. I already know the initial stuff that you sent me, but is there anything else that you want to tell me? Because people do want to talk. They don't want to be talked at right at the top of the call. So I think it is good to give people that space, but you don't want it to feel open-ended. Like I was saying, we don't want them to then, for the next 15 minutes, 20 minutes, go through their entire medical history. So we want to keep that container focused and kind of just say, like, quickly go through. And you can ask clarifying questions during that time. And then you're going to transition to talk about how you would offer to fix their problems and achieve their goals, and the solution that you have in mind, and that you think that this would be the best fit for what they're talking about. And like I said, connect maybe 3 different benefit statements from your program. You can describe your program and give them some detail, but hopefully they read about it a little bit on your website so that they have that background, so you're not spending the whole call going over what the program or service is. Or you kind of blend their problems and goals into your description of the service and how you deliver it, and talking about features, but really talking about benefits and how those different things that are part of that service are going to address their problems and achieve their goals, and using their words as much as possible. And that's why it's good to have people fill out that intake form, and then you prepare this script and these notes ahead of time. You don't have to read from a script word for word, but going to have some of these notes in advance so that you can speak to this and have it be a really smooth call. And then once you share that, ask them how that sounds, what questions they have, discuss the price, discuss what the next steps are, what to expect, and just keep it on time as much as possible. Allow them to do some talking, but also kindly and gently steer the conversation back to really this decision making and answering questions that they have specific to your services or product. So I hope that this was helpful. Like I mentioned, this was a flow that I followed recently with another service provider. So I was on the receiving end of it. I, found them on Google, explored the website, booked a call, and became a client. And that is a flow that you can have working in your business as well. It's something that we help you set up in our program, the Wellness Pro website system. So if you'd like more info about that, go to wellnessprowebsite.com. And I also have some blogs about intake forms and improving your website for getting more people on discovery calls too. So be sure to check that out. It's linked in the show notes, or just go to whitneybateson.com and head to our blog to explore the articles there. All right, I will check you out next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.